The Global Health Solutions present HeartQuest HRV system for the functional assessment tools for research and education only. So today we will present a case study, and we want to go through the different icons and then see how we can interpret different kind of cases. So the first we want to see then analyzing the electrocardiogram signals. So looks if it's proper electrocardiogram signals was recorded. See the all HCG complexes is appearing. And if you need increase and see a little bit more bigger one, so you click on the mouse, right click and then move the arrow up, and you can enlarge and you can see more bigger electrocardiogram signals complex, ECG complex. So we see P wave, QRS, T wave. So this is proper one. So we don't have a lot of pink lines. So this is over here. So I just click and I want to see if it will be just kind of like artifact. So we kind of see it's a normal ECG pattern. So this is the good one. Another way, so the kind of we'll analyze and see the electrical signals. So we want to see the amplitude of the R wave and the basically 1 millivolt calibration. So if it's smaller one, so they will give us some little bit information about what's the vector of the heart position, and the second one, so it's showing up how much the electrical conductivity happening in electrocardiogram signals. Next one, so we want to see if during the recording, so if it's any distortion was appearing. So this is why when we click over here, so we want to see how reliable is recording. So the percentage over here, so the higher percentage is the better. So it's showing up so that during recording, so we don't have any interruptions, any emotional stuff, any other stuff. So they kind of well, this will give us the number how reliable is recording. Next, so we'll go to the A, B, C, and D parameters. First of all, so we want to see the comprehensive peak performance, because this is the heart rate variability will depending and changing with aging. So that's why, so we have some data and showing up what's the average healthy people will showing up for a heart rate variability for specific age. So the blue line over here is showing up what's the average people for this age have, and the red one, so what's this particular person. And we see, so it's kind of exceeded more than average people, and this is kind of a good sign on the first kind of first interpretation of the first screen. Then we're looking for A, B, C, and D, and then so we see which one is the lowest one. A, it's a cardiovascular adaptation. B, autonomic nerve system regulation. C, it's a subcortical NEURO-HORMONAL regulation, and D, some emotional component. So this why, so we see, so this cardiovascular adaptation is a little bit kind of running low. So they will keep attention, so something is going on this area. Let's move to the next step. So we go to see how the histogram and the spectrogram is showing up. In this case, so we see, so the histogram is measuring RR interval and showing up, so what percentage of each RR interval, how many, so what's the predominant one. So the basically predominant one is right over here, and this is what they're showing up in a percentage. So it's a 34% absolute mode. Ideally, so we would like to stay between 30 and 50, so it will give us information about how our heart is doing and if have enough adaptational part. The second one, so we want to see this in the green zone. So the green zone is basically, it's indicating so heart rate is normal. If it's moving more into the red one, so it's more tachycardia. If it's moving more to the blue line, so it's more bradycardia. Next step, so we're looking for the scatterogram. So the scatterogram is showing up in a different dimension, so this the rhythm of the heart. So ideally we would like to stay in the green zone corridor, and then the scatterogram will looks kind of like little oval shape or kind of like a cloud shape. So this will be kind of ideal, and this is what the scatterogram is explaining over here, and then the informational icon, so it will explain what's how to read this scatterogram. Next one, so we're moving into autonomic nerve system regulations. So we'll see, so the pi, and then so we see, we want to analyze and see, so the high frequency is only 5%, so this represents parasympathetic nerve system. Low frequency is 22%, is presenting autonomic nervous system sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system regulation. And then so we see it's a lot of 74, which is kind of like VLF. It's a NEURO-HORMONAL and some emotional component on it too. But it's very important to see how this particular person is handling stress. So this is why it's important to see what's the stress index. In this case, so we see stress index is 93, which is kind of like well in the range of the normal. And then so we want to see how much the vital force this particular person have. And it's in a good range, so it's 168. So it's well showing up, so it's kind of like a good one. And then so we want to see how the autonomic, so basically two branches of autonomic nervous system doing. In this case, so we see it's a little bit exceeded of normal range. So we see so between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, so they have like a little bit tight connection, and this why so they experiencing a little bit of some starting imbalance range. SDNN is showing up in the normal range, so it's 54, it's good. And then so we see so the index of centralization is moved from the middle part into the CNS. In this case, so when it's like combination, we see so the stress index is kind of like normal range, high vital force, and index of centralization moved toward to the CNS with a high LF. So this will give us information. So it's less metabolic, it's more emotional component affecting heart rate variability. So this is kind of like one of the questions arising. So how you interpret, is it emotional stress or it's a metabolic issue? Because the VLF, it's a lot of NEURO-HORMONAL HPA axis, but in some cases when we see the stress index is in normal range with a high vitality, so probably so we're dealing this with emotional component. Let's move to the next one. So this we see NEURO-HORMONAL matrix. So we want to analyze and see how much we have. So we have some little bit of lower end numbers over here. So the 37, if you look over here, so the 37, it's a little bit unstable NEURO-HORMONAL regulation. And the HPA axis distortion, so showing up on the orange zone. So this is will give us, so something is still going on. So it's not only just emotion, but it's still some hormonal regulation is disturbed in this case. Next, we want to analyze then see metabolic pyramid. So the metabolic pyramid, metabolic rate is basically one of the indicators. What's the metabolic rate index? How much energy is kind of like producing? And then it's showing up over here the 89. If we look, so it's kind of like a little bit moderate, slow metabolic rate. The blue line is showing up so that it's anabolic phase, and the red one is showing a catabolic phase. Ideally, so we would like to stay kind of like in balance. So this is what the kind of like anabolic catabolic balance index is showing up. So we are in a green zone, so it's a good one. Next step, so to see how to interpret again, so 37, and we look to over here, so we see some component of the hormonal imbalance. Let's look on NEURO-HORMONALs and then so the psycho-emotional state. On the psycho-emotional state, we're looking for what's the power of the brain activity. So the 37, and if we look, so the state of some exhaustion. So between 33 and 50, so it's showing up, so the central nervous system state in exhaustion. This will give us some information. Brain toxicity 1.8, so it's still kind of like, well, acceptable, normal. And again, so when it's lower than 0.5 and going to the more negative, so this we see so some sign of the brain intoxication in this case. So it's still positive around 2, so it's still good. And then so we're looking for the brain neurotransmitter ratio. Again, so we're not directly measuring this neurohormones. We're extracting this information from the frequency spectrum, and we can see so which one, so it will give us information which one we need to work out. In this case, so we see the serotonin is 0.2 and dopa is 0.2. So they're basically two major neurotransmitter is kind of like running a little bit lower. And we see so the serotonin basically is well corresponding with a lot of emotional stuff, and the dopa is kind of like the power of the brain. So this will give us information for supporting, so what's the neurotransmitter so we need to support. Next, so we're looking for what's the brain activity on the spectrum, on different spectrum. Again, so we extracting this not directly from electrical activity of the brain. It's extracting from the heart rate variability, and it's on a heart-brain interaction. So we see how much the heart is receiving information from the brain, and we can calculate and see what is going on. Ideally, so we would like, when we awake, so we would like to stay in alpha and a beta stage. So this two line is showing up what will be ideal scenario. This is what it kind of like looks like. So we're more relaxed and a little bit alert. In this case, so we see 88% of the brain activity showing up the delta wave. So something is going on. It's a stress, depression, or it may be sometimes it's a sleep issue too. So that's why it will give us information. So the brain is a little bit on a slower mode. So we need to find out why it's like this. Is it due to too much stress, or it's like insomnia? And this is when we go more in deep, so we can see how circadian rhythm is affecting and give us another information about what's going on in this case. Next, we're going to see what's the biorhythm. So basically we see how much the biorhythm coherence is going on. So the 26%, and if you're looking, so it's partially disturbed biorhythm coherence, and the forecast index is negative, so it will tell us the body is still experiencing the stress, and so the forecast is kind of like negative. If we will not release this stress, so it's maybe affecting immune system reaction and other part of the neurohormonal regulation. So this is kind of like important part, how stable the condition, or it's kind of like, well, what's direction if we will not relieve from this stress, so what will be possible outcome. Next one, so we're looking for gerontological performance. Like I told you in the beginning, so the heart rate variability will be changing during the aging, and so this why the curve over here, it's a database of what's the average people for healthy people for different kind of like age group, what they have. In this case, so we see this particular person, the age is 59, but it's a biological age performance is 54, so it's -5 years. So this is kind of like will give us idea, even for this parameter is low, but I mean like biological age is still in a green zone, which is kind of like, well, it's a good sign. Next one we want to see, it's kind of like overlook again, so the A, B, C, and D in a kind of like a different shape presentation, and then we want to see what's the complex peak performance condition. The blue line over here is showing up what's the average performance, and this is what this particular client will have, and this is if it's better, so it's positive. So in this case, so we see it's in the green zone. Next, move to the next one, which is very important. So we want to see the circadian rhythms, and this is what we see. So during the dark part over here, during the night time, so we see circadian. So the line is running up, and then it start dropping early in the morning, and the 5 and 6 o'clock it's dropping, and then so it's on the evening time again, it's around like 10 o'clock it's going up. So this will tell me something is going on. So the brain is not going to the more deep sleep, and then so during the night time, so the brain is not relaxing, so the circadian rhythm is disturbed, and this why we need to considering if it will be related to the stress, to high cortisol, melatonin production. So this will give us ideas how the body circadian rhythm is working. Next, we'll see spectral mineral and hormonal ratio. And again, I mentioned, we are not extracting this directly measuring this mineral, so it's extracted again from the heart rate variability, and so we want to see what's possible mineral and the hormonal ratio in which direction it's going. In this case, we want to analyze the main minerals, so potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium. In this case, we see sodium is kind of like running too high, and some of the essential minerals like calcium is running a little bit lower. So this will give us ideas. So something is going on. So the sodium is too much sodium, and then a little bit depletion of the calcium. Inflammatory index is kind of like, well, calculation. It's how much inflammatory process we have. Up to the like 300, 400, so it's still okay considering in the green zone. So in this case, we see it's 284. So we see it's not a lot of inflammatory processes going on. And so we start moving into the hormonal. In this case, we see the DHA is running low, and like we see it's a neurohormonals on the first level over here, so the HPA axis distort, so possibly will give us information something will adrenal HPA axis is distorted and possible some DHEA depletion. And then so we look over here, so the estradiol is kind of like running high, so possible we have some kind of like, well, estradiol ratio is a little bit high. Thyroid function index in the green zone, this is good indicator. Insulin, well, kind of like close to the green zone, so this is the good one. So let's move more into the Chinese medicine. So we want to see how this is distributed, and this will help us to find out what's actually is going on. First, we want to see what's the total power. So the normal total power between 15 and 1500 and then 3000. Sports people have more higher, and then when we exhaust it, and then the total power will start dropping. Next, we want to analyze and see the how this energy is distributed through the meridians. And in this case, so we see, so the lungs, we see the purple, so it's a lot of qi stagnation. And in the Chinese medicine, so we know, so it's a lot of grief is going on, so the emotional, so it's connecting to the grief. And when I asked the patient, so what's going on emotional level, and she said, so she lost a relative, and so this is a lot of grief right now on emotional level. And this why, so the lungs meridian and the heart meridian is producing some little stagnation. So this why, so it's kind of like important. And if you want to see what's the emotional connection, so you can click on the info button and it's open up the PDF format, and it will tell us what's the emotion and then how they will interconnecting. So let's move to the next one and want to see and analyze. So we see, so the metal element is a little high, and the lungs a lot of like stagnation, and the water element is the lowest one. And so this will give us information which element we need to stimulate to balance the whole system. And then so we're looking on a deficiency, so this showing up, so the yang deficiency. And then so the water element is the lowest one, so this is relationship to the adrenal gland. So, and I think so in this case, so we need to support adrenal glands, take care of emotional stuff first, and helping up to the adrenal glands regulation. So let's move to the area where we have energetic plexuses, and this will give us information about how we can. So look on this, the lowest one, so the 25 over here in the first energetic plexus, and this is relationship to the adrenal glands, immunity, and some connection to the different organs like heart, small intestine. And then so we'll look on the another lower one, so this is 32, so this is on the brain, so something is going on in the hypothalamus area. So hypothalamus area and adrenals, and again it's what's confirming over here, so we have HPA axis some distortion. So this will give us information what's the supporting plan will be good for this particular patient. And then so when we look on the Ayurvedic perspective, so we see it's a lot of Vata person, so they need a little bit more grounding, and to look, and so it's to look more and see what's the best remedy will be for supporting. So it will be oil, and then the diet recommendation. So this is kind of like a quick overview in this case, and then so this is what the kind of like we see it's emotional component. So we see if it's running too much, the VLF, stress index in the normal range, the vital force is kind of like high enough, and then so we're analyzing the meridians, so we see it's a lungs meridian have a stagnation. So this will give us a clue, so it's emotional component which is draining some adrenal glands. And on the hormonals and the mineral ratio, so we can see what's the best supporting. So it will be calcium, and then DHEA will help up to kind of like balance the system. So it's a quick overview of this case, and if you have a question, so you call us and we will help you to explain more in deep how to analyzing the different cases.